Howie Roseman is back at it again, getting hog mollies like Jordan Davis and ripping off the Titans with A.J. Brown. But the big question is, can Jalen Hurts take the next step? Can the Eagles return to the Super Bowl? Now we're moving on to Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles, they made the playoffs last year, lost to Tampa Bay in the wild card game. Since then, they've made a couple of big moves. Obviously, the big one, grabbing A.J. Brown via trade. Also brought in wide receiver Zach Pascal from the Colts, and then grabbed cornerback James Bradbury after the Giants let go of him. Brought in edge rusher Hassan Reddick /edge rusher / linebacker, and then safety Jaquiski Tart as well. And then the draft grabbed Jordan Davis, defensive tackle in the first round, and then the second round grabbed center Cameron Jurgens. My apologies, Cameron, if the J is more of a soft Y. And then linebacker Nakobe Dean also in the third round, who I know many people liked, and he fell. Then in terms of who they lost cornerback Steven Nelson, edge rusher Ryan Kerrigan, he retired, safety Rodney McLeod, wide receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, running back Jordan Howard, and then guard Brandon Brooks, who also retired. So, John, what are your thoughts on your rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, and what to expect from them this season?
I was really impressed with the Eagles offseason. I think some of their biggest issues last season were their secondary was pretty inconsistent outside of Darius Slay, and so you address that by getting a guy like James Bradbury and safety Jaquiski Tart. I think they can bring consistency. We'll see about Bradbury because he had that one really amazing season with the Giants, and he hasn't been able to replicate that since. But the Giants also weren't a very great team around him. Like, they had solid defenders, but it was very specific positions. So like Leonard Williams was great, but then at linebacker they were a little weak. Or Jabril Peppers was solid, but then maybe the opposite safety until they got Xavier McKinney was kind of weak. And so they didn't have the greatest overall defense, to where I think the Eagles are going to be a lot more balanced. Their defensive line is obviously great with Fletcher Cox, with Javon Hargrave. You add Milton Williams last year. You get Jordan Davis this year. A lot of depth at the defensive tackle spot. They still have Brandon Graham, still have Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat. You add Hassan Reddick. There's just a lot of depth in that front seven. Also an underrated signing, Kazir White from the Chargers. He had a solid year last year. And so I like what the Eagles did. I think that they're not going to be, a top 5 defense, but I think that they have a lot of talent on that side of the ball. And I think one of the things that they really made an emphasis to do this offseason is just get depth, get guys you can rotate in. And we see that along this entire defense. And so I think that overall, their defense got better. Also, you still have Anthony Harris, who they signed last year. I think that he could have a better year than he did last season because the improved secondary around him. Avonte Maddox, a very small corner, no longer has to play on the outside. You can actually put him in the nickel, where I think that he is best at. So I think that I really liked what the Eagles were able to do defensively. And then offensively, I mean, what more do you ask from them? They improved their offensive line depth. They add A.J. Brown, a true number 1 receiver. And I think that adding him can help the rest of the receivers, where Devonta Smith, I think that he's a very solid receiver, and maybe one day he can be a number 1. But I think with his current size, his just overall game, I don't think he's quite ready to be that physical number 1 presence on the outside as of right now. And so maybe as he evolves his game, he can be more like a Keenan Allen or some of those other guys who are the number 1 receiver, but they do it through different ways. A.J. Brown can actually be that true number 1 outside receiver. And so I think that frees up Devonta Smith to be used in a lot of different ways. And I think that it's going to make Jalen Hurts have a really good just options everywhere. You have Dallas Goedert at tight end. Now you have A.J. Brown on the outside. You can move Devonta Smith in and out. You add Zach Pascal, who's, once again, depth along the weapons that you have. And then on the offensive line, you add Cam Jurgens. And so you have him. He could potentially be the future replacement for Jason Kelsey, but even that allows them to have depth. If Landon Dickerson, who's currently dealing with a little bit of an injury through camp, maybe if he gets hurt, you can throw Jurgens at guard. Just overall, I liked what they did in the offseason. The key thing that you're going to have to watch is Jalen Hurts. We've known this for the last couple of years. If Jalen can take a step forward, they can actually be a legitimate force in the NFC, and they can win this division. If he doesn't, he could potentially hold them back. We saw last year against the Cowboys, in specifically that first game. There was just times where it just didn't seem like his arm was able to get it done. Now, that was also a game in which the Cowboys were able to put up a lot of points. And so if their defense can improve in that regard, then they can run the ball more, which is what they want to do. And so that can make the game closer because then you're not forcing Jalen Hurts into something that is not his strength. But if he can take that step in terms of being able to throw the ball better and they can rely on his arm when they do have a deficit, then I think the Eagles could be a very deadly team. If they can't do that, then they'll still be a really good team because they can run the ball better than 95% of the NFL. Like, they're right up there with the Ravens and the 49ers as one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. And so if they can maintain leads, they're going to be hard to beat. So we'll see. They might win this division, especially now that we saw with Dallas, they have these offensive line issues. And unlike the Eagles, they don't have depth there. So we'll see. But at the same time, once again, QB position, most important position, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with Jalen Hurts, because I think that could be the only thing that holds them back. But luckily for the Eagles, they were very smart with the way they handled this offseason. So they actually have 2 draft picks for next year in the first round, which means if Jalen Hurts doesn't prove to be the answer, they have the ammo to potentially move up and go and get a guy like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or whoever's at the top of that draft class come this time next year. So yeah, I like what the Eagles did. I think they're a playoff team for sure, whether that's in the wild card or winning the division. Like the Cowboys, though, I don't think they have the ability to like upset the super top of the conference, being the Rams, the Buccaneers, teams like that. But I think they have the ability to make some noise.
I'm a little bit higher on the Eagles, I feel like, maybe than you are. But I will say this too. I like what you mentioned about basically both the offensive and defensive line, especially the defensive line. A lot of depth there. Kind of similar to the formula that they used to win when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, just really good trench play, some solid corners. Linebackers are fast and kind of rangy in terms of the defense, and some solid safeties. And on offense, like, even their starting 5 offensive line's pretty good, even though they lost Brandon Brooks. And then still have like an Audrey Dillard as a solid. He's a former first round tackle who, can probably step in if someone gets hurt, and they can maybe shuffle the line around. And then like you mentioned, probably I would say better receivers than that Super Bowl run, obviously, with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, and then Dallas Goedert's already had a year, or basically half a year, being the main tight end. And then even if Jalen Hurts is still the Jalen Hurts from last year, I think this team will still be really good. So if he can't take that next step, though, I think then they enter the cream of the crop in the NFC, like I mentioned earlier, like the Rams, and I would say probably Bucks, and we'll probably throw the Packers in there, just because we have been the 1 seed the past 2 years. So yeah, like those teams, I would definitely put them in that class if Jalen Hurts can just be more, I wouldn't say methodical, but just surgical, moving the ball in terms of the passing game. Like if they play a Bucks or a team that has a really good, that can kind of stifle their own line and won't get pushed around, like a Bucks or the Saints. Okay, now Jalen Hurts, can you drop back for a couple of drives, pass 8 or 9 times, and just pick apart this defense and just be consistent with your throwing mechanics, especially in the more shorter to intermediate areas? Because it's got a good deep ball. Got great touch. It's just not the fastest and quickest, most efficient release in previous years. But I'm sure it's I'm sure that's something that they're all working on, especially him. But like I mentioned, even if he's the same Jalen Hurts from last year, I think just the addition of AJ Brown, now you have 2 real receivers to be scared of, and Dallas Goedert in the middle, and have a good stable of running backs. This is still an offense that can hit you in multiple different ways, and then obviously Jalen with his legs too can already be a threat. So yeah, I have high hopes for this Philly team. Honestly, I mean, I'll share it when we actually do our season predictions, but I'm definitely leaning towards them as my choice to win this division, just because it's one of those things where I really don't see where they got worse. I only see where they got better. So we'll have to see, of course, once it's actually a game time come week 1. So, yeah, I like the Eagles. I'm high on them. I know John is, obviously concerned as a Dallas fan, because not going to be a fun team to play.